welcome back to Advanced Math 2 Quick Concepts. Today we're going to be talking about sinusoid curves. The ones I'm going to be doing are in your book, Lesson 67. I'm going to go through 10 and 11. 10 is with radians, 11 is with degrees. So just a really quick review of this. This was gone over in Lesson 66. So actually it was actually introduced in the very beginning of the book, but what they're doing is they're taking it to a different level. So I'm going to just write out the formula that I give you when we first start learning these. So A is what we call the center line of the graph. And I'm just going to label these. This is what we call the amplitude or the wave height. And then once I draw out the problem, you'll be able to put in. This is what we call the period. This is the wavelength, if I can spell the word period. Wavelength. And some books call this the phase shift. Some people call it the phase angle. I call it the phase shift because it makes more sense to me, because that is how far it's shifted off its usual 0 point. And this is your function. You could have a cosine here, you can have a tangent, you can have a sine. So this is just going to be your trig function here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take number 10 on lesson 67 and apply it to this problem so you can kind of see what I'm coming up with. So give me a second while I write this out. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This is going to be 10. This is negative 2. This is 3 pi over 2. This is 3 pi. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative 3 pi over 2. 1, 2, and negative 3 pi. So if I put here, and then here, 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 here. Okay. Also within this one, there's actually this is the wavelength there. It's kind of a formula within a formula. But this is really all you need to solve these. Okay, so let's start with our center line. So we have to figure out what line is right here. So we have to figure out what's exactly between negative 2 and 10. So you can just add those together. If I said 10 plus 2, I'd get 12, and half of 12 is 6. So 6 down from 10 is 4. So A is going to be my center line. Now, the next thing I have to do is figure out my wave height. So if I go from 4 to 10, I'm going to a wave height of 6. Now I have to figure out what function they're asking. And if you look at the problem, it says write the equation of problem 10 as a sine function. So I'm going to go ahead and put in sine as my function. And now I have to figure out my wavelength. So my one full sine curve goes from 0 to 3 pi. So I'm going to say 2 pi, c is going to be equal to 2 pi over 3 pi, which of course reduces to 2/3. And then we're asking ourselves, is it shifted off the x-axis? And it's not. It started right where it's supposed to be, so I can just put my theta. So that is going to be your answer right there. Now let's go ahead and do number 11 just to kind of cement things home. But again, if you want more in depth of this, you would look for the quick concept at the for Advanced Math 1, and I'll probably go into a lot more detail on that if you've completely forgotten what to do on this. That's negative 2. All right, so this starts at, this is 90 degrees. I'm just drawing the problem right now. 450 degrees. 630. This is 270. Okay, so this is going to be here. this will be here, and then that's going to be -90, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure out our center line first. Again, we have a and -2. It's going to be 10. Half of that is 5. So 5 down from 8 is 3. This time they want us to do it with a cosine. Now remember, cosine looks like this. So since it's kind of flipped upside down, we are going to call it a negative cosine. So I'm going to put minus, and then our wave height goes from 3 to 8, which is 5. So we have a minus cosine here. Now we know it goes from 90, or actually we go from, I'm going to say 450 to 270, so 450 plus 270. The reason I'm going that way is because it's just a little bit easier to see what's happening here. I see one full cosine curve goes from 450 to 270, 450 on the negative side. So if I add that together, it's 720. And so it's going to be your C. Now, when you're dealing with degrees, it's instead of 2 pi, it's 360 over this, which reduces to 1/2. So it's going to be 1/2. Now, this time there is a phase shift. If you notice, normally my cosine is going to start right here at 0, but it starts right here, which is, it looks like it's shifted off by, that's going to be halfway, -90 degrees. So we're going to put +90. You're always going to go the opposite inside your parentheses. So let me make sure I have that right. Now you could also shift it the other way if you wanted to and say, okay, well, it needs to go here. So you can also get something, but you would have to make it a positive cosine because then we're talking about this. So please understand you can get a couple right answers here. So do not be upset if you don't get something exactly like the book. You can always just send me a text and say, hey, is this right? But a lot of times there's more than one answer. And that is it.